guys! Today I am transplanting some very leggy tomato seedlings, and I wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm doing. It's not that complicated, so I'm not really sure if it really requires a whole video, but I'm doing it and I thought I'd bring you guys along, talk to you a little bit, and just hang out. So I have in front of me this whole tray of dead tomato seedlings that I had repotted right before I left for Florida a couple weeks ago, and while I was gone almost all of them died, and the ones that did not die look like this, alive but just barely. And so I'm going to be repurposing these cups with the dead ones into cups for these guys, which are mainly tomatoes that I'm planning on trying to sell at the farmer's market this year. And I've got a few here, not like a lot, because A, I'm not really trying to make a lot of money, I'm just kind of trying to feel out the situation. And B, I don't have the room for all of these tomato starts if I was to have a lot more than that. So I'm going to save all the tags because I am planning on replanting a lot of these ones that died. So hopefully I will need these tags again. But basically all I'm going to do is take one of these and squish it out. So you can see I've planted a lot of tomato seedlings in each cell. I think this one has 4 that I'm going to use. And with tomatoes you can do this because the roots are very forgiving. Just as long as you actually carefully pull them apart and don't really rip at them. And additionally, tomatoes handle this very well because along the stems you'll see they have little hairs, and these little hairs can, once they touch soil and water and all that, just become new roots for the plant easily. So leggy tomato seedlings, especially like this, are not as much of a detriment as it would be with other plants. So I've got one of these kind of teased out here, you can see, and I am going to pull off, this is one of the baby leaves, not the true leaves. I forget the correct word for that, but those are the first 2 leaves that come out, and I'm going to take that off and use my little tool here to push all the way down to the bottom of my pot. And then I'm going to probably remove some more of this dirt so that it'll fit. And hopefully just plop him straight down as far as it'll go. There we go. And so if you had deeper pots, you could go way deeper than this. But this guy bottomed out, and that's all there is to it. Each of these is going to get its own little pot, and then they'll be good to go. So this next one, you see I barely got any roots with him, but he's probably still going to be okay. Again, I'm going to take off those first leaves, make my hole all the way down to the bottom, and this is going to go in as deep as he'll go. Just like that. And you might be wondering about this double cup system I have here. So this first cup has a hole in the bottom, second cup does not, and it basically is like bottom watering for big trays, except it's on an individual basis, so you can put the water in the non-hole cup and it'll like catch the drips if you were to water from the top, and it will also function as a bottom watering system if that's what you want to do. So you may also be wondering why I would plant a bunch of plants together in a very small cell and then take all this time to separate them later. And the answer to that is I don't have the room. Oops, Kata. I don't have the room to put these all in individual cups from the get-go. And my seed starting setup indoors is pretty small, and so these only get to be potted up when there's room for them outside in the greenhouse in all their individual cups. So that is why. And it's only a little extra work, I would say. I mean, I would have to be prepping all of these pots and doing all of this individual seeding anyway. But this is just kind of a workaround for me since I don't have the space to start them all at once in their individual cups. So this particular variety that I am repotting now is Cherokee Purple. Additionally, I have a Lucid Gem. I have the Hungarian Heart. I have a couple Topaz tomatoes, and I have some Orange Hat tomatoes. And mostly with this, I was going for interesting varieties. There's a few of each. And I was thinking people coming to a farmer's market might really like to see some stuff that they can't see in the store. But I don't know. We'll see if that's actually what they want, or if they actually just want normal tomato plants that they can grow at home. But I have a little bit of each. Just in case this is your first year gardening and you're tempted to get some really cute, really fancy little markers for your garden, let me just caution you against that, because those sorts of things don't last, especially if you're leaving them outside. And even in indoor plants, stuff like that can break down right at the soil line. So what I've started doing is using just these cheap little plastic things. And then the most important part is that I'm using a UV fade resistant marker. This is a Sharpie Extreme, but there are a lot of other brands you can use. And basically something that happened to me last year was I used a regular Sharpie, and then by the middle of the summer I had no idea what was what, because all of these were practically blank because of bleaching. So, cautionary tale for the day for you. And so normally I would try to conserve tags and do like tags by the row or something, but since these are going to the farmer's market, every single one needs a tag. Something else cool is, so these trays that I'm using, they obviously weren't built for red solo cups, but I think they were built for something like this. And basically what I've done is I went to the garden center, and a lot of times they have all of their empty trays just sitting in a pile for people to take. And so I took them and they were free, and it was great. And now I'm reusing plastic that might otherwise have gone to waste. Some of these are very full, and I don't know why. Also, since this isn't necessarily made for these red solo cups, it's a little bit of a tight fit, but at the end of the day, it works, and it was free. Even some of these tomatoes that survived me being gone look pretty sad, but I'm willing to give them a chance to be okay, you know? Tomatoes are one of those things that really bounce back. You know, you can take a cutting from a tomato with no roots at all, stuff it in some soil, and generally it'll grow roots and be fine. And this is not completely dead yet, so I think it still has a pretty good chance of coming back. So if you're a first-time gardener and you're trying to figure out what tomatoes you should be growing, I would say there's a few important things to think about. First of all, you need to think about your space and whether or not you're going to be able to grow determinate or indeterminate tomatoes. And all that means is a determinate tomato is a determined size. Like, it'll get to a certain height and then it'll put all of its fruit out at once and then it'll be done. And an indeterminate tomato is going to keep growing, keep getting taller as long as it has the right conditions, and keep putting out what we call flushes of fruit, so like waves of fruit, until something kills it. And so if you have a small space, you might want to go for a more determinate variety. And if you have a bigger space where you can trellis your tomatoes up really high, then definitely go for the indeterminate variety. A determinate variety might also be good for you if you live somewhere where your like growing season is very short, because they'll grow up and they'll put out one big flush of fruit usually, whereas an indeterminate will take a little bit longer to get going. So that's also something to consider. Also, please think about what you will actually eat. I know that sounds really basic, but last year I was like, I want to grow all the tomatoes. And I didn't know at that time that I didn't actually like eating raw tomatoes. And so I grew a lot of things that I didn't personally really enjoy, and I ended up making sauce with a bunch of tomatoes that weren't really meant for that. And that turned out okay. It wasn't a waste, and I got to give some away to friends. But, you know, it probably would have been smart of me to try some raw tomatoes and see if it was worth all the time and effort I put into growing all these different varieties of tomato. Whereas, you know, this year, for my own garden, I'm focusing on paste tomatoes, sauce tomatoes, because that's what I like, that's what I want. Okay, so this guy was so tall that he is still leggy, even though the bottom of him is down here. And so, again, when this gets planted out, it can definitely be planted deep again, all the way up to the leaves. Every time you replant a tomato, you can plant it all the way up to its leaves, and it'll be fine. It'll even be probably better off because, like I said, all of these little hairs are going to become new roots for the plant. Well, it looks like we are all done. Got these, and we've got these. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you next time, but until then, happy gardening.